If you have questions for the mailbag, you can email me, the Solomonster at gmail.com. Please include your name and where you are from. Let me run through a couple of them here, maybe 3 or 4 of them. Scott in Kenosha, Wisconsin. AEW has a few former Ring of Honor World Champions on their roster. Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, Adam Cole, Cody Rhodes. Do you think it would be a good idea for one of these champions to show up at ROH at their last show and surprise win the title and take it with them back to AEW? Fans would see the belt on TV and would help keep ROH on people's minds. And if ROH does come back in 4 months, it would help make their return easier if their title has been seen on TV and in a positive way for the 4 months the company was on hiatus. I see absolutely no benefit whatsoever in that for AEW. Why would AEW even do that? What is in it for them? They have no working relationship that I know of with Ring of Honor. You know, Ring of Honor is its own entity owned and operated by Sinclair. They have not worked together up to this point with AEW. Now they're going away. They claim for 4 months, possibly for good. Certainly this version of Ring of Honor as we know it is dead after next weekend, and whatever new version might pop up in the spring is going to look very different. I don't see how AEW benefits from it. I'm sure Ring of Honor would love it. They get their belt on TNT. But if I'm Tony Khan, I'm like, no. If that idea is presented to me, I don't see what it accomplishes. Other than just trying to be nice and just pay homage, I guess, to Ring of Honor and, you know, the history of that title and the history of that company. I don't see how it benefits AEW at all. And yeah, they have enough championships as it is on TV. If there's no active relationship between the two companies where there's like a talent exchange and there's something to be gained from it on both sides, then no. If I'm Tony Khan, I'm not entertaining that idea because I don't see what the upside is for me. Daniel from Hamburg, Germany. What if Randy Savage would have returned to WWE before WrestleMania 18? Who do you think he could have worked with? Before WrestleMania 18, following in Hogan's shadow again, I see. We had Hogan come back at WrestleMania 18. That would have been the worst time for Savage to come back. Like every other part of his career, he would have been overshadowed by the Hulkster. Look, Savage by that point, 2001, 2002, certainly when we saw him in TNA in 2004, he was a shell of his former self. I mean, the injuries had just ravaged him, his knees, and he wasn't moving around very well. He was so jacked up. I mean, that was not the Randy Savage that I remembered. That was not the Randy Savage that was out there having these great classic matches that I remember. He was long past his expiration date in the ring as far as like a full-time performer. Now, could you have brought him in to do a special match here and there? Yeah, probably. And with the right opponent, he probably could have gone out there and had a pretty decent match. Him against The Rock would have been an obvious match. And there were always rumors that The Rock wanted to work a WrestleMania match against Randy Savage. Maybe in 2005. And his contract ran out at the end of 2004. And he was greatly offended by this. And WWE was like, oops, it was a clerical oversight. And that was the end of the relationship for about 7 or 8 years with The Rock and WWE. But there were always rumors that Rock was hoping to get Randy Savage in to do a match at WrestleMania. I guess that would have been 21. So I know there was interest on The Rock's part in working with Savage. I'm sure if Savage would have come back around 01 or 02, Rock and Savage would have been an obvious match to do. Savage and Triple H would have been an obvious match to do, given the comments he had made previously about Stephanie McMahon. And that opens up a whole other can of worms that we won't get into. So there were some obvious matches that you could have done. You could have done Hogan against Savage, right? I mean, look, they did Hogan against Flair in 2002, a few months after Hogan came back. And I don't remember if it popped a rating or not, but they did it on TV. It was a title match on Raw in the main event. So we probably would have had Hogan against Savage, or at least a Mega Powers reunion at some point. So you could have definitely done stuff with Savage, but understand that he was an absolute shell of what he used to be at that point. And I think he understood that, and that's why we never saw him. And he did come back very briefly in TNA, and he was all covered up in black. He didn't do much. And we never saw him in the ring again after that because I think he knew his time had come and gone. He didn't want to go out there and embarrass himself. And his body was just completely gone by that point. So I don't know what you would have done with him outside of doing a special match here and there. I would have loved to have seen Savage back in some role. You know, not as a full-time performer, but like I said, a big kind of dream match here and there. And he used to do announcing. I kind of like Savage as an announcer. I know some people didn't. I don't think Jim Ross did. But unfortunately, we never got to see it. Julius from the Bronx. What if Shawn Michaels got drafted to Smackdown at some point during the Ruthless Aggression era between 2002 and 2008? I think we would have had a lot of kick-ass matches with Shawn Michaels against Brock Lesnar and Shawn Michaels against Eddie Guerrero. We did get Shawn Michaels against Kurt Angle. We did get Shawn Michaels against Edge, eventually. But just look at the roster that SmackDown had during that period. I think Lesnar and Eddie are the key ones who stand out to me. We absolutely would have gotten those matches, but that was on his Bible study night. That's the reason why Shawn didn't want to go to SmackDown. I think on Wednesdays he and his wife had Bible study, and so that was back when SmackDown was taped on Tuesdays, and it just didn't jive with his schedule. So we were deprived. We were potentially deprived of a Shawn Michaels-Eddie Guerrero match because he had Bible study. And Scotty from Columbus, Georgia. Buy, sell, rent on who needed the win more over Triple H at WrestleMania. Booker T at WrestleMania 19, Randy Orton at WrestleMania 25, or Sting at WrestleMania 31. The key word there is needed. And the person who needed that win the most at WrestleMania was Booker T. Now, him beating Sting was incredibly stupid. Him beating Randy Orton, I thought, it's fine, whatever. I mean, I didn't really care about that match. But Booker T is the most egregious of them, just the way the match was built up. And the way they made Booker out to be a clown, and some of the ways that he described him on TV, and you're beneath me, and people like you don't win this, and all, just every aspect of how that match was built up was tailor-made for Booker T to just stuff it down his throat and shove it right back in his face and win the championship. And when he didn't, and the manner in which he lost on that one pedigree, that was the worst. That was the worst of the bunch. He needed it more than the others. Sting should not have lost to Triple H at WrestleMania, but Sting was a made guy, and you know it's not like it killed Sting. I mean, all those guys ended up doing pretty well for themselves, including Booker. But at the time, and then whatever Booker went on to do after that, it didn't do him any favors. Just in the context of that story they were telling, he should have won that match. He needed that win more. I would buy on Booker, I would rent on Sting, and I would sell on Orton.